This broadcast is inappropriate for all ages right here on #WeAreMovieClub. It's time for Scary Movie Squad. Salutations, I am Camerai, and I am conversation ready. That was Rooster's butt. This is Scary Movie Squad, where we get together to talk about the movie of the week, or the scary movie of the week, and this week is The Descent. This is particularly one of my favorites, and I've been waiting, I don't know, like a month and a half to do this because we've been stuck in the Alien franchise. And I say stuck with all the love possible because it's a fun franchise. And the reason I did it in the first place is that I liked it. Someone pointed out recently that I rated things very high, and I said, that's not true. I'm all over the place. It just has to kind of deserve it one way or the other. And I tend to go medium more than anything else. So, once we get towards the 0 and the 100, it's like, I really can't justify going that high or that low, because, especially on the low end, they made a movie and put it out there. So, addressed. Let's get on with the thing. Let's talk about the movie, because, quite frankly, these lights are hot. And I'm fat and sweaty. So the beginning of this movie is a little weird. For a movie I like so much that I would put in like my tops, that I would promote over other horror movies, it is fairly interesting that, like, I would probably cut the beginning of this movie, if I'm being overly honest. If I was going to do a change of scene, it would be to take out almost everything before they go into the cave. None of the development that we get up until that point is useful. Yes, it's there. Yes, they say names, but none of it's important. It doesn't feed back into the story. It's almost there to disarm you or misdirect you like a magician would. Whereas Sarah's all about the loss of her family, because the first opening thing is them on a whitewater rafting trip. Apparently her husband and her kid were with them, or at least in the area, and they all drove home together, but because families suck or whatever it was, they have some kind of collision, and a pipe goes through her husband's head, kills her kid. She is hospitalized for a while. She finally recovers, and then the following year, for their yearly trip, when they normally do it, which is, of course, forever marked as the anniversary of her husband's death, or her child's death, more importantly, because I think her and her husband were on the rocks, and that was part of the reason that they had enough of distraction going on to have the collision in the first place. It's such an odd thing to like memorialize, because it really is. It's like, oh, this is going to be some dramatic movie about how she gets over and handles it. No, it's not what this fucking movie's about at all. Cut the shit. It's not important. It doesn't apply to the main story, where it's about survival. Surviving these unknown caves and these Wendigo creature type things. And we kept calling, in chat, we kept calling them creatures, because we did watch this over in Camerai. I'm sorry, Rabbit/Camerai. Friday nights is Scary Movie Night. And so it was kind of good to watch it with a couple other fans, and we called them creatures, and we called them, we just called them them. I think Wendigo is the closest definition you can get to these things. Oh, look at that. We've already got more RSVPs for next week. Yeah, so you can find the group on Rabbit, Scary Movie Squad. At this point, I think if you Google hashtag Scary Movie Squad, shit comes up. So, I made a tiny footprint on the internet. Yep, there's my stupid face. I had more hair in that one. And then other things come up, such as bad summaries and mostly Scary Movie Squad podcasts. Yay! Sorry, I get to revel in that for just a moment before we trudge on. So we were talking about a movie, and I was talking about, again, like how I like to cut it. But we do the whole 1 year later thing, a bunch of ladies, and let's be honest, they're climbers and cavers. They're good looking a bunch. So you could easily be misdirected into thinking this is an eye candy movie, and I'm not saying that it's not there, but it's definitely not the point of it. this is, I don't know. It's kind of like some nice middle ground, because the focus is not really on the ladies and like that they're strong survival ladies and whatever. It's just humanity surviving in a horrible, fucked up situation. But that doesn't mean that they're not badass, sexy ladies, because let's be honest, at least a couple of them are. And you can be all things. You don't have to be one or the other. So okay, so and Sarah kind of has like moments where like, are you on your medication? Are you on your medication? Where she's a little loopy or whatever. I don't know if she's on antipsychotics. She's at least on antidepressants. So despite how early they get up and they go to this thing and everything, they think that they're just on another cave adventure. It's all charted out. They've got safety things. If you're unfamiliar with spelunking and mountain climbing and everything, you leave information with people whose job it is to come find you if you don't report in. So if you're gone for 48 hours and don't check in, someone comes to look for you. This is not that movie. That actually would be an interesting premise for a movie. It's like someone goes and they disappear and you have to go rescue them. Maybe I'm thinking video game when I said movie. Maybe. But the new girl, Holly, is Juno's protege. And those names don't mean anything because fuck these people at this point. But Holly, the point is that Holly is new girl. Juno's apparently one of the more senior ladies, or take charge ladies at least. But they all get up early, go out to the thing. They get down into this cave system, and the way they get in is actually kind of ominous, because it's literally like they're being they're lowering themselves into a Sarlacc pit or something. They just straight down the maw, if you will, and then they go down the throat. But the whole point of it is to find like neat little passages and whatnot to go through. And again, because Juno's a fucking liar, they're actually in a whole undiscovered cave system. So they're exploring an uncharted cave system, which I can't express to you how dangerous that is if you don't get it on your own. I really can't. It's like being stuck in the desert with no water, dangerous. Especially since no one's coming for them. So, like I said, they go down into the maw or whatever. They're seeing bats. Sarah even finds like a hand groove that looks like it might even be bloody. Now, again, Sarah's medicated, so she's kind of just ignoring things when they're not directly affecting her that she sees around. But she's the most perceptive out of any of them. Let's see. So the best part of the movie, one of the best parts of the movie, is really early on when they're going through like the first couple cave systems. Now they all think it's a safe system and everything. It's not a problem, but there's like this teeny tiny crawl space type thing, and they all go to squeeze through it. And then for whatever reason, Sarah loses her mind. She goes bananas, and it takes the roof caving in to really get her attention. So like, yeah, that sobered her up quick and they got out of there, but they lost one of the equipment bags, which is important. You need that equipment to get around. You can't always just go like walk wherever you got to go. Sometimes you got to climb, and you got to like ceiling climb across stuff. I don't know if you've ever just done this. Your arm gets tired pretty quick, relatively. Yes, hello. So imagine doing that with gear on, witch climbing, after going at it all morning. Juno is a dick. So yeah, so a little after or right around where the ceiling collapses, Juno tells them that like, hey, no one's looking for us. It's so reassuring to be in a cave system like that and just be like, no help's coming. We're fucked. Let's find a way out. But like then the pressure's on too, so it's like you know what the deal is, so you just have to puzzle that out and figure it out. It's actually motivating in a weird way. I really like that kind of idea. like one of the first like little obstacles, especially if you're thinking about this as a video game, that they have to deal with is that someone almost literally walks off an edge. It is dark in these caves, and they express that really well through the camera and the lighting, because it literally looks like somebody walking. We've got the camera in front of them, positioned just oddly enough because of like it's supposed to be a tight cave system, but it's like we look like we got plenty of room. And sure enough, it pans down so you can see that she was about to walk off a cliff. And the gap there in the pathway is like what, 12 feet? Well, it's about twice or whatever you'd be comfortable jumping. I used to be able to clear 6 feet. It's been a while, but I used to. So like they have this weird like ceiling dilemma where they've got to like put things in the ceiling, run the rope through, and then continue going. And it's supposed to be like a 6-cam trip, and that's what they're called, cams. But they only have 3. Plus, there's this ancient thing that's up in the ceiling that gives them a little bit of a hint of like what, like how long it's been since someone's been there. But she gets across that and she throws on the rope, and then they zip over or whatever based on that, and then they recover the equipment. All very important, but it's all pretty stressful at this point because there's no creatures, nothing like that. It's just, are they going to survive? Like, is this the part where they start dropping? Is this the part where they start dropping? No. Oh, they've got to go back, and then they do that like last little short scene jump scare on you. And they don't do a lot of that in this, but they do enough that like it's classic. It gets that feel, and it's partly misdirecting too. Let's see. So I'm gonna hit a couple of the important beats because we're still in the slow part of the movie. As good as the buildup is, we end up seeing this cave painting, and I think they end up wasting a flare on it, but they interpret it as there's 2 ways out of the cave. There's the way supposedly they came in, and then there's one other way out. So they could eventually find it. And it's justified later on as we discover the creatures that like they've got to get out to hunt for food somehow. And that's they had found a dead moose earlier. It's really interesting to see that sort of thing. Like especially like seeing these creatures, like why would they leave the moose if they didn't have to? And so maybe it was just 1 or 2 out there and they ate what they could and had to leave it because it's a fucking moose. Moose are big. So, oh yeah, and then on the puzzle bit, I forgot to mention that. It was so crazy. My hand hurts just thinking about it. Someone almost fell, and the person on belay didn't have the belay ready, so when they grabbed the rope on its own to stop it, it's fucking crazy. Like it just burns through her hand. It's like it hurts just thinking about it. It's okay. So and then, like we start seeing the first glimpse of shadow right around the cave painting times, and it's real great introduction to the creature, because it looks like it's just a foreground rock at first, and then like the head lifts, so it's like, oh, we're just gonna walk by this rock here, and then there's your dramatic reenactment. And of course, we're dealing with friggin' crazy Holly. Juno is smart enough to like use her lighter to see which way the wind's blowing, because if you're unfamiliar with how wind pressure works, the outside of the cave is going to have wind blowing by it, which is going to suck air out of the cave. So if you follow the flame will actually take you to the exit eventually. There might be some trapped currents and something that might get you stuck, but if you can get away from those, it'll eventually take you in the right direction. So, of course, Holly takes off like a madman because she's probably not used to being cooped up and sedentary for so long. She's used to being out and open adventure or whatever. And so she sees what she thinks is the exit, because when you're in caves like that where it's that dark and you start to get areas where there is some light, you get weird reflections that look much brighter than they should be from certain angles and distances. So she runs towards that thinking like, I'm almost there. and straight down like a friggin' mine shaft, basically. It's a natural formation, but still. So, of course, everyone has to go down and now waste time saving her because she's an idiot. Honestly, in 99% of cases, 90% of cases, whatever, you would leave her there with enough rations or whatever after you tended her wound, and then you'd come back for her. With this, maybe because it would seal off, you have to take her with you. But it's almost too treacherous. They don't have the equipment to deal with an injured person, and they really don't. As it's very obvious in the movie as they try. So they end up having to like carry her around. They try to do like arm stretchers and stuff. I don't know if you've seen that. It's where people will grapple like that, like arm to arm, and then so you can kind of make little thrones for them. Sarah wanders off while they're patching up Holly, and of course she finds like a helmet. She hears a noise. She thinks she sees somebody, and so that becomes like this whole argument. Hey, you're crazy. And then they come into a room full of bones. Here's the thing with a room full of bones. You find a room full of bones, something put them there. It's very unlikely that hundreds of animals all went to the same place to die. It's more likely that something ate them. Or put the dead bodies there and then they decompose together. In probably more advanced scenarios. Let's see. So that's kind of the proof that they're not alone down in this cave system, but it's craziness regardless. And so they turn the night vision on, and of course there's like one of these Wendigo things right behind one of them just hanging out being like, what are you guys doing? And so as soon as they notice it and like they all get tense, it screams, and of course they run because that's what you would do in that scenario. But little do they know that's exactly what it needs. So sure enough, because they all run different directions, it jumps on the weak one of the herd, Holly, because she's already injured. She can't move that quick. It jumps, bites her neck. Holly drops. And let's face it, Holly's done at that point. She might be bleeding to death, but there's no fighting off the thing and saving her at the same time. So they're basically just fighting over her body at that point. Which makes sense because dude's hungry. And a second one shows up to kind of like fight for the fresh food as well. And Juno actually ends up like kicking some ass here. She like really like leans into it and takes up that badass warrior role. But who's it? Beth? I think it's Beth. Their names are not fucking important unless it's Juno or Sarah. I'm just being honest. But Beth ends up sneaking up on her. Don't ever do that. If you ever see your friend holding a weapon over a dead body, you don't sneak up on them. You don't have to touch them. You call their name enough, throw a little rock at them from behind a wall or a bigger rock. Yeah, so many safer ways. And I'm not saying like she deserved it, but because I did feel a little bad because it's for both of them, because Juno just murdered her friend and then she kind of comes out of shock from it just to go into a different shock. She's shocked in her shock. If you shock me. Shock and rock, baby. So Sam and Becca are separated together. Sarah's by herself, but she has the camera because the camera's always your friend. And so she ends up seeing like a pack of them drag Holly in and eat her. She ends up making out a noise, and she figures out that they're blind. They can't actually see her. So that's cool. But we've got to make that discovery like 2 more times. So it's a little bit meaningless to have Sarah figure it out on her own and then watch it again and again. Sam and Becca actually end up laying down on a ledge and spooning, which actually gets them by, and they kind of figure out that like they can't see in the dark very well because they're blind. But then her stupid little watch that her boyfriend gave her goes off, which like they just the weakest throw ever. And then the Wendigo thing comes to investigate it. It's like, what is this? And I don't know how you interpret that. If you're a feral blind creature and there's a sound you've never heard before on a thing you've never heard before, as far as you're concerned, it's a funny sounding rock. Beautiful. Really like imagery in my head thinking about that. And you can't eat it because it's not made of meat. So what do? You're just like, oh, this is a thing that happened, and you go forward and you tell your grandbabies about it, I guess. One time I found a rock that made a noise like this. So Juno actually has the fun reaction of like, she sees one that doesn't see her. She may actually figure that they're blind by that too, because she stops and then looks around right past her and then takes off, and she's like, oh yeah, it's on. She goes to hunt the thing. She's crazy. Honestly, Juno might have problems. Like, if we're being honest, I get Sarah has problems, but Juno probably has problems. Let's see here. Sarah finally loots Holly's body. She ends up getting a weapon from the pickaxe, and she makes a torch out of it, which I think is pretty smart. Other than the fact that fire makes sound. Now, granted, it's probably not a sound that they're familiar with. It's not a sound that means food, but it's going to draw their attention regardless. But it does mean that she can see. She's also the one with the video camera, the night vision video camera, so maybe we should have used that a little bit more. And yeah, sure enough, I'm the one making an argument for found footage in a film where it doesn't belong. Oh man, it would have been such a worse film probably. But we do get a fun scene where Sam and Becca finally get jumped. And I can't keep their names straight. I'm so sorry. The little one runs, which I think is Becca, and then Sam tries to fight the bigger one. She's got glow sticks on her thing, so it's actually just like swinging at the thing. Juno ends up saving them, tells them that Holly and Beth are dead because she was there for both of those. And then I've got Sam here marked here as the girl with the watch, and I don't think that's right. She ends up giving her giving Juno like a medical rundown of what's up with the creatures, which I actually thought was cool. I thought that was an interesting way to go about it, being like, oh, they're this, this, and that, and they must be this or this. And it's like, oh, that's interesting. At least one of them's like really smart. And then Juno theorizes they have to have a way out to hunt, and so that's got to be their other exit. So there's got to be a way there. And honestly, if you think about it, the food caves or layers or whatever, the bone layers, should be where the food or the exit holes are at, because like, why would you want to drag your food not only into the mountain from the woods, but further into the mountain? It doesn't make sense. You're gonna draw so much more attention from the smell and sound of the food slapping around. You want to get it in your mouth as quickly as possible. So of course, Sarah, of all people, finds Beth, the girl with a hole in her neck, that's been dragged around by these creatures, and I guess they've eaten her some. Like, they've at least, like, eaten some of the outside of her, if that makes any sense. Like, it's pretty horrific, that not only did she survive her friend putting a pickaxe through her neck, she survived her friend abandoning her, and then these creatures carrying her off, and then chewing on her alive. I can't even say eating her alive, because I'm not sure that they actually, like, took meat away. They just fucked up her outer layers pretty good. So she's in one of the kill rooms. Gah. It is a really pretty messed up scene. But the point of it is that she tells Sarah not to trust Juno. And because Beth is near death, rhymed, she knows the end of the movie. Someone gave her a script while she was laying there, and she was reading through it, and she's like, this is messed up. I gotta tell Sarah. I'm making fun of it a little bit, but it's actually a pretty powerful moment where, like, her friend's there dying, and she's gotta, like, listen to her friend, tell her that her other friend's all fucked up. It's a good scene. And then, to top it off, for the hat trick, if you will, bloody Beth asks Sarah to kill her, and, like, of course, Sarah, because she's a good, decent person, is like, I can't. And I think like a creature jumps him. No, I apologize. She ends up finally taking a rock and smashing in her friend's head. And I think that's more of a mercy than Juno did, if I'm being honest. But of course, we get like a creature jumping her while she's sitting there in shock. I mean, it takes a minute to process. Like, I just murdered my friend, and it's a good thing, you know. And I'm really not sure why it wants to fight her. I'm really not, because you'd think it would go for the meat first and then fight if someone challenged her or challenged him for it. But Sarah ends up killing him, and then Wifey comes out of the shadows. And she ends up fighting with Sarah as well, which causes this whole run and bullshit scene where she falls into, I can only imagine it's like a red algae river section, or maybe it's water with enough blood runoff in it, because when Sarah comes out of it, she's coated. Like, she is the red-faced lady. So it's interesting to see that sort of thing pop up there. So, let's see. She manages to kill Wifey, and Wifey falls back into the river of blood. So it's not like she's going to contaminate the river. It's not drinking water. It's like runoff. And then another one shows up, and she does something clever. Like, at this point, you kind of think like they're just going to fight and fight and fight. She lays down on the rock, and the thing pretty much steps on her. Like, but it ignores her because she's not moving. You would think the fact that she's warm would do something, but she did just take a dip in the blood, so she's going to be wet, bloody, sticky, and she's probably going to be a lot cooler than she normally would be to like register body heat to the creature. So, even though it's just kind of sitting on top of her, it like gets up there, looks around, goes, I guess nothing's here, wanders off, and then as soon as it gets far enough away, she grabs like some big bone thing and clubs its head in like she's a caveman. It's awesome, because it's kind of that's kind of the scene where like Sarah transforms. Like, she's kind of been losing her mind up into that point, but that's the point where she elevates and like levels up into like warrior badass. And I think it's fun. I really think she's a cool character when it comes down to it. So sure enough, Juno, Becca, and Sam are all together. They hear Sarah screaming, like during the fight. I think they like rewind like 5 minutes or something, and they try to hide. Juno stays a bit, and like 8 things end up after her. Like, it's like this whole room worth of creatures, basically. The watch girl, I think it's Becca. It may not matter. Anyways, the girl who had the annoying watch ends up like ceiling climbing like we did earlier, and I may actually be back to the original portion, because, and funny enough, that might be a safe point if she could get there. But part of me thinks that like she was actually going to commit suicide. Like, her plan was not to get away or to get a tactical advantage. The point was to get away far enough so that she could kill herself so she wouldn't get eaten alive. But she's climbing across the ceiling with the gear, and then one of the things ceiling climbs, because they've got to be Spider-Man on top of everything else, and then they slit her throat with their claws. But like, one of the coolest, there's so many cool scenes in this movie, I can keep saying that all day long, is that like she actually takes her little Swiss Army pocket knife thing and stabs the bitch after it gets her, and I think it drops into the water down below, and then like the other ones end up jumping Juno, and she gets knocked into the water, I think. Is that right? And then, oh yeah, because Becca dies pretty dramatic. She's hanging from the ceiling, like laid out. And then Sam ends up so distraught about it, they end up getting her. And I think while Juno's trying to save her, she gets knocked into the water. I think that's right. hold on. I take notes. Oh, yeah, because, like, Becca's just crying about Sam, because it's very clear that she was in love with her, even though we didn't get to see that type of thing. And Juno ends up in the water. The knife chest creature is down there, obviously. And she gets to finish it off, which is cool that, like, we actually see that kind of resolution happen. It's not like it's a big, bad mid-boss that comes back later on in the movie or the sequel or maybe the third movie when it finally comes out. Eventually, like, she climbs out of the water and she runs across Sarah because, let's face it, it's a small cave. You know, you're gonna run into people you know. But the movie said they're gonna meet up, so they did. So Juno tells Sarah that everyone else died. Now, granted, Sarah didn't really, like, have a choice in the matter, but, like, Sarah wasn't around anybody else almost the entire movie. Like, she didn't have an ability to save anyone other than Beth, who she had to kill out of mercy by the time that happened, where Juno actually ended up at an opportunity to defend and try to save everyone. And she lost Holly. She left Beth. Sam, now to be fair, Becca ran off, and then Sam got dumb, like, because she was distraught, which got her killed. And so, like, you can only do so much to save people. But, like, they both kind of, like, change at that point, like, or at least Juno recognizes that Sarah's a little bit different. And Sarah obviously knows that Juno's different because she thinks that Juno tried to kill Beth on purpose, as far as we can tell anyways, because they don't really talk about it. Like, she got a very short conversation with Beth. She said, and just boiled down to Beth said that Sarah couldn't trust Juno, and that she's the one that did that to her, or left her behind, or whatever the scenario was. But they go on together for a little bit. They fight together for whatever reason, and then after they manage to kill everything, I don't know why this is the moment, but Sarah finally, like, calms down from the fight. They look at each other. Sarah just shows Juno her own necklace, and then legs her, like, maims her, puts the spike through the kneecap. It's friggin' gross, but she did it. And the whole mentality of it is a pretty, not famous, but infamous adage that I really enjoy at this point, where it's like, I don't have to run faster than you. I just have to, or I don't have to run faster than the bear. I just have to run faster than you. Which I really enjoy that mentality, because not like for my personal usage, but it's a beautiful philosophy in it of itself. It's about survival, and it shows how evil people are. But like, this is almost a scenario. It's like, okay, you don't trust the other person. When are they going to do that to you? If you do it first, it should mean that they're not going to be able to do it to you. So you kind of got to go with it. So, like, I don't blame her. But Sarah takes off running. Juno's surrounded, and she's ready to fight. I don't even remember if she's alive in the second one or not. Personally, because I don't remember, I really hope she is. I hope that Juno comes back in the second one, and we really go with it. So Sarah gets distracted. I don't remember if she starts going mentally crazy or what, but she falls down a shaft kind of like Holly did. But the shaft she ends up landing in has some light in it that she thinks is the exit. And we go through this whole scene of her, like, climbing up and up and up and up and out. And she gets out and she can't believe it, and she takes a moment to take it in, then she runs. She gets to the car and she just cries and bawls her eyes out. She starts driving like a crazy person. She gets out to the road and she goes for help. And then she has to pull over once she gets far enough and just process it, because hugely traumatic experience. And then, of course, she looks to her right, and who's there but Juno? So we know it's a fantasy. We know it's a dream. We know she didn't actually get out. That's the one thing you can tell about that she wanted all this stuff to happen. Like, she was dreaming it. She was trying to manifest it. But Juno's the monster in her nightmare, or at least the last one that she faced off against. So with that said, like, we know that it didn't actually happen. We know that we didn't actually get there. So it primes it for, not only does it prime it for a sequel, but it leaves it just generally open-ended. Like, we don't know what happened to Sarah at that point. More than likely she's normally I would say more likely she's dead, but because we know that there is a sequel, she's probably in it. So it's probably just she hit her head, and she's having like some fucked up dream. And it is what it is what it is. So super happy to watch this movie and talk about it. I highly recommend it. Again, we watched it on Rabbit/Camera. Come watch the sequel with us next week on Fridays, and then next our Sunday night is double feature night where we do a bad movie and then cleanse up out with a good movie. Stick around, join the Rabbit groups. It's gonna be a good time. So until I see you next time, this has been a little bit of Scary Movie Squad right here on #WeAreMovieClub. If you want to see anything else we're up to, go ahead and click the annotations and they'll take you to our other channels. Thanks for watching.